Thank you everybody to come here to see my talk. So I'm gonna talk about the journey we take to make IT guys and business guy aware of AWS like REST API in a large French bank. So who am I? I'm Laurent Grangeau. I'm a French consultant for big banks like Société Générale, Crédit Agricole, big French banks. You can follow me on Twitter at Laurent Grangeau. And I love to automate things. And I'm also a cloud solution architect from about 5 years now. So if you don't do finance, you should think finance is like this. So lots of curves and lots of mathematical expression, but it's more like this. It's more like Microsoft Excel spreadsheets and macros and VBAs. So it's very different of what you see. And you can think the data center is something like that. So infrastructure as code, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. But it's more like a VMware portal with some click, and if you want to deploy a new server, you have to wait for maybe 2 or 3 months before you have your server. And if you want to have a physical server, you have to wait more than 3 months. So we have 2 sides here. We have the business side and we have the IT side. So in the business side, there's a lot of quantitative analysts, hundreds of counts. And we have to move from Microsoft Excel VBAs to more modern tools. So we use Python mainly to leverage on big data, for example, or Spark Job or something like that. And on the IT side, as I told you, you have to wait several weeks to have a new server or several months to deploy a new application. Generally speaking, there's about 3 or 4 deployments a year for an application. And you have the rise of the fintechs, which are getting more and more market share for the banks. So you have to be more agile, to be more fast, to deploy faster. And it's also difficult to recruit new talents. So we have to change all that. So the CTO and CEO start 2 IT programs, 2 different IT programs. So the business side, so as I said, they use Python and this ecosystem, mainly to have Jupyter notebooks. So Jupyter is an application to do some Python, some data analytics very easily, and to connect to the Hadoop platform, Hadoop cluster, to perform some Spark jobs on the cluster. Also, Python is used to develop Python libraries, in-house Python libraries for quants to make different algorithms and to be more efficient on the market. And there's complete integration with IT tools like VMware, Oracle, Apache, and stuff like that. And from the IT side, the main program is to be like AWS. So to be more agile, to have API REST, AWS like REST API, to reduce time to market, to deliver faster, to automate everything, and to transform ops in devs, mainly Python devs. So from the IT side, we have to create some REST API to control all the infrastructure. So to create servers like Windows, Red Hat Server, CentOS, to perform expand and shrink of data disk, mainly on NAS and SAN, but also to create more easily and more efficiently some middlewares like Apache, Tomcat, and some SQL database like Sybase, PostgreSQL, SQL Server, because before that, we have to wait about 1 month to have another database, to have an installation of database, because all is done from hand. So all is manual steps to reproduce. And APIs are driving some other tools like DNS as a service. So when you start a new server, you would like to add it to the DNS, so a DNS cluster. You have SPN as a service. It's mainly Microsoft technologies to service principal name to have some services discovery on the bank. You have PKI as a service, so creating new certificates without the human intervention. So self-provisioning PKI certificates. You have also IMI, so you perform some authorization and authentication automatically, and much more. So there's a galaxy of lots of tools which can be piloted through API. And there's also a program we launched last year. This program is the Cloud and PaaS program. So the main goal is to leverage on the Docker Enterprise Edition to provide ease of access of middleware to thousands of developers, and to reduce cost, and to have more dense densification of the server, because in this bank, lots of servers are doing nothing. Mainly 10–50% of the CPU is used, but the 85 or 90% of the CPU are not used, and they are lost. So we have to consolidate the use of the different resources like CPUs and RAM. And Docker provides also self-healing infrastructure and resilience in moving containers from a host to another automatically when this host shut down, or when we have to scale. You scale the containers, and they are replicated all over the cluster. So to do that, we have introduced IT as a service, so ITaaS, like they call it. It's a little program based on Python, and it's a REST API like AWS. So the V1 enables us to do infrastructure as code. So in our CI/CD pipeline, we're used to create servers, create middlewares, launch tests, have the results, and then crash the server. And they also enable to self-provision servers and middleware. So we self-provision server in a little more about 1 hour. So it's really different from 3 months we have. So the V2 reduced time provisioning. We move from one hour to about 10 or 15 minutes. And we broaden assets to be provisioned. So like PKI as a service, DNS as a service, middleware, and database, like I said. And then the V3 is complete rewrite of the software using different tools, different technologies, like Swagger. Swagger is a tool that allows you to define your API through YAML, and then perform some get and put requests on the API. And then we have also expanded the number of assets to provision, mainly on Docker and mainly on public cloud like Microsoft Azure and AWS. So there's lots of tools, like in business side, we have Python ecosystem, so lots of in-house libraries development, and IT side, we have this API, which is really used, but there's some drift. So, for example, business side, there's a lot of single notebook and no share between these notebooks. So, quants are working alone at different desktop, different notebooks. So they're working alone, and there's no share and no communication between them. There's no library reuse between quants. So maybe 10 or 15 quants can develop the same library without sharing them to each other. They can use the different version of the same library. For example, pandas, we have v1, v1.1, v1.2. And there's no consolidation of the library we use. And all the development we had in Python libraries, they were stored in the desktop of the quants. And so if you have to share the libraries, you have to send it by email. So it was really not efficient. From the IT side, they're the same problem. So you use different versions of the same library. So it wasn't really efficient. You have some shadow IT. So you have some, for example, a server or a workstation inside the desk, which provide access to repos, for example, or Python repos. And they also provide access to external repository through a proxy or through authenticated proxy. So at this time, we were thinking of using JFrog Artifactory to consolidate, to centralize all of that, and to have a unified experience for a developer and for a business guy. So JFrog Artifactory enables us to provide proxy for remote Python package, like PyPy, pip, conda. It cannot work for conda because there are not official support, but if you trash the index regularly, it cannot work. So it would be better to have support for conda package. Artifactory provides unified storage for in-house quants Python library. So all the development the quants made are centralized in one repository, and all of quants can use the different libraries they made. So it's a really sharing opportunity of libraries. You can also enforce the same version of the library. So for example, if you say we have to use version 1.2 of NumPy, everybody will use the 1.2 version, and there will not be another version in this repo. And also Artifactory is using more and more to provide proxies for other language like Ruby, Maven, CentOS. Actually, we are thinking about moving from Nexus to Artifactory for all the banks. So Artifactory provides us a central way to have libraries, to have proxies, but you have to go further in the deployment of Artifactory and CI/CD for all of the developers. So the solution came from our team. We provide a white repo in GitHub which all of the developers can clone with default sane, like a Jenkins file with all of the CI/CD pipeline, different configuration file to use JFrog Artifactory for internal repos and external repos. And then devs can just git clone, change some properties in a config file, git commit to a new repo, and then start coding. So it's really easy for the developer from the IT side or business side, because all you have to do is only clone a repository, change your version or name of the project, and then you git push, and everything is hooked up automatically. We have do that because we wanted developers to have some free time to perform other stuff and to produce value. For example, to produce libraries to automate everything, to get rid of ticketing tooling like Jira or mailing or chat like Link or stuff like that, because we wanted developers to talk to each other, to share the the communication, to share their experience about Python development. And it's the same for the IT guys. So we have, in one side, the biz dev developer, and the other side, the DevOps developer. And we wanted to share all the knowledge and all the discussion between the two of them. We also relied heavily on training. So to explain that to all the new developers of Python, we have a 1-week bootcamp. So with more than 10 ops onboarded, for example, in the IT side. In the dev side, we don't have yet this type of bootcamp, but we plan to do so. It's been every week since the beginning of the year that we're doing bootcamp, so it's really, really intensive. We wanted the ops team to move from ops to DevOps, mainly to understand what it is to develop an API to pilot to automate everything. So this training enabled the ops to better understand dev's constraints. For example, external access to a repo, CI/CD is not working, so they aren't aware of that because we have siloed team. So we have devs and business and ops, and what we want to achieve is to reinforce the discussion between the three of them. We also initiated the ops at the software craftsmanship, so TDD, BDD, CI/CD tooling, and we encourage people to do inner source and collaboration. So inner source is open source, but in the enterprise, because we work in a bank, and the bank don't want to share the secrets or what they do. Okay, so the architecture is something like that. So at the far left, you have the user or the developer, and then they git push to GitHub. It triggers a webhook on Jenkins, and Jenkins perform build, test, and push it to JFrog Artifactory. So push all the applications and all the libraries on JFrog Artifactory. JFrog enables us also to have external proxies to PyPy or Conda Forge, but also internal proxy. So we developed a better collaboration between developers and operationals. And then Jenkins push the application in Rundeck. So Rundeck is a tool to automate jobs to pilot IT, so mainly VMware in our case. Or Jenkins push Docker container from staging to production to have a running application live at each git push. So everything is running on the Docker Enterprise Edition. So everything is a container on the Docker Enterprise Edition. So I will do a little demo of what we achieved yet. So if you want, if you don't know every tools we use, so you know Python. So pip is a Python package installer. It's like apt-get or yum install, so it's the same. Nose-test is a testing tools for Python. Twine is a collection of utilities to interact with PyPy, for example, to push to JFrog Artifactory or to build the infrastructure. And Tox is to provide virtual env-based automation of data activities, because you can have different versions of Python, so mainly 2.7 or 3.5. So Tox enables us to have different versions of Python, so different environments to run the test. So how does it work? So we have a Jenkins GitHub repo on-prem. So it can be anything. So you create a new repo. So for example, swampUP demo. You create a hook pointing to Jenkins. You put your Jenkins URL to have a GitHub webhook. And then you clone the original repo, so the white repo I told you about. You remove the remote origin branch, and you add your own repo. And then you git push everything. Everything is, the CI/CD pipeline is triggered, and everything is built, tested, and then pushed to Artifactory. So I will do a little demo of what we achieved, but before I just wanted to show you what Jupyter notebooks look like. So Jupyter notebooks is something like that, so everyone see. So you input in the in you input your Python language, and then the Jupyter notebook can run the Python, the algorithm you take, and it can produce matrix like that, or it can produce, for example, time series matrix or different things. So it's really useful for the quants that test algorithm to perform, to see how this algorithm is performed against the market, so to have the better algorithm to trade. And for example, it's a real example. You can also have some nice slider, some nice D3GS stock charts, all of that, that you want. And you have also, for example, another notebook which performs a Monte Carlo algorithm against the market, and then you can you can have, for example, some analysis of the market in real time with Jupyter notebooks. So Python is really, really important and enable us to use different things like big data, for example, what Microsoft Excel can't achieve. So that is from the business side. From the IT side, we have a repo here with different things, so Docker file, Jenkins file, some configuration. Jenkins file is ready to perform different steps, so check out the GitHub repo, perform some tests, perform some quality tests, so we use Sonar to perform some quality tests. They build the application, and then they push it to JFrog Artifactory, and then we can deploy the produced Docker image to the Docker Enterprise Edition to see the results. And I will show you how is it in Jenkins. So in Jenkins, for example, you don't have, for now, a swampUP demo. So we will create a new repo and then git clone and show you how does it work. So if I go there, if I clone my repo, so it's a white repo with all the default things. I'm cloning it. I'm created here a new repo, for example. So we're gonna swampUP demo, for example. Okay. So copy and paste. swampUP template. As I say, So I have a cheat sheet. So you remove the remote origin. You add your repo here. That's it. And then you change the configuration. For example, we will name the project Swagger Server swampUP demo with different ports. And then you commit what you changed. Okay. I forgot to add it. Okay, and then you push it to GitHub. Okay, and now in Jenkins, you will see a new build appear normally. Okay, yes, I forgot to hook it up to Jenkins. Okay. You hooked your GitHub repo to Jenkins, so let me copy and paste the URL. Okay, so if you perform another commit, for example, and then you push it to GitHub. So you will see in Jenkins a new build, normally. Okay, so the new build is here, and it performs what we changed. So it performs all the builds, the test, the packaging, the push on Artifactory, and the deployment in Jenkins in Docker Enterprise Edition. But there's a little problem here because Jenkins can't push it to JFrog Artifactory because you have to be authenticated. So you have to add some credential here. So here is my credential. So everyone can have his own credential and can define their own credential on Jenkins. And if I rebuild this job, okay. So normally, all is going to be okay. No, unfortunately. Okay. So it's because I've got a new line. And then if I push it, so normally normally the build will be triggered, and everything will be okay. So here we are using the Jenkins file pipeline as code to provide some stuff directly to the developer. So the developers, if they want to change their pipeline, they can change their pipeline in the Jenkins file, and they don't have to worry about logging in Jenkins, change some configuration, and then relaunch their build, because everything is stored in GitHub. So all you have to do is push code in GitHub, and your code will be built, tested, and deployed automatically. So we have deployed everything. So if we go to Sonar, for example, so Sonar is a tool to analyze the code quality and defects. So here is my new application. So everything is okay. We have got no application, no code coverage, only 43 code smells. And we have deployed in Artifactory a new Swagger server swampUP demo automatically. So nothing has changed but the job configuration, job.properties configuration. And if I'm going here, we see here the application we are currently running. So it's Swagger, so it's an application to design automatically API, REST API in YAML. And then here is an API example of the pet store in Java, so in Python. So you can, for example, post stuff here, and you have the response, so you can test your API automatically. So if I go back to the slide, so in conclusion, JFrog Artifactory enabled us cost reduction because everything is centralized, everything is shared between developers. We have better and faster development. We reduce the time to market from months to weeks and maybe days, one day. And we also migrated from Visual Basic, VBAs, macros, Excel, to Python. And it enables us lots of new use cases. So as I show you the Jupyter Notebook for data analysis, the use of big data. So we have a big cluster, a big Hadoop cluster with lots of Spark jobs, which can be launched on Jupyter Notebooks. We also have the reusability of different Python libraries across developers, IT quants, IT developers, IT guys. We have faster computation of analysis because Microsoft Excel runs on the desktop of the quant, and now Jupyter Notebooks can run on a bigger server and across a cluster, and for example enable new technologies usage like GPU computing, machine learning, different tools. And from upsides, use of Python enable to move from an ops culture to DevOps culture because ops now better understand what developer needs, and there are better collaboration and communication between ops and between dev. So that's it for me. If you have any question, I'm happy to answer it. And please don't forget to submit your feedback forms. Do you have any questions? Okay, so if you don't have any questions, thank you very much.